One of the most exciting spaces in China tech at the moment, which is e-commerce, the future of shopping. And no better people to weigh in on this subject than Jonathan Wetzel, Senior Director at McKinsey, who has been at the forefront of so much great research, insight, and analysis about what's happening in the e-commerce space, in the internet space, more broadly in China. And Zhang Shuhao, who, as many of you will know, is the founder of one of the most dynamic e-commerce companies, Ele.me, in China, which is a food delivery company and is one of the largest in the space and is doing all kinds of interesting and innovative things. Jonathan, let's start with you. Can you give us a little bit of an overview of the landscape in e-commerce, some of the metrics that you kind of use to talk to people about the size of what's happening here?
Well, sure. I mean, it's easy to get started. 730 million internet users, 40% of global retail e-commerce, 11x mobile payments versus the United States, and China wow. versus US, a third of the global unicorns. So, I mean, whether we're talking about transactions, technology, or money, China really stands out, and in the technology broadly and specifically in retail and e-commerce.
Wow, those are really amazing numbers. Each one of them you have to kind of stop and get your head around. I mean, to say 40% of the global e-commerce market from a single country is quite a thing. How much longer can this continue? We're getting these incredible growth rates. Has it peaked, or can it still run for many years?
We're pretty bullish on that. I mean, there's a couple of things, two things. First of all, we are still in the great early days of the Chinese middle class income boom. Yep. So, we've got a lot more people getting a lot more rich over the next decade or two, which is great. And of course, we've got all of the catch-up to do on the industry side. I mean, the top electronic retailers in China, the top 5 account for something like 20% of market share, whereas in the US, the top 5 account for 70%. Yeah. It just shows you kind of how early and how fragmented most Chinese industries are. So it's both things. It's more demand, lots of it, and more catch-up and more efficiency on the supply side. So both of those things turn into lots of opportunity.
Let me ask you about this trend that Alan mentioned at the top here, which is this kind of shift of not just pure online commerce, but this kind of blending of online to offline. We've seen a little bit of that, obviously, in the United States with Amazon and their acquisition of Whole Foods. How would you compare where China is to that trend relative to, say, the United States?
Well, I'm sure this is going to come up a lot, but I mean, whether you call it omni-channel or online, offline, or unichannel, yeah. I think there isn't really anybody today who buys only online, and there isn't really anybody today who buys only offline. It's 100% no one or the other, and in an urban middle-class consumer context. So it's really a integrated channel. And so, and that holds for brands, that holds for retailers, that holds obviously for consumers. They have to think in an integrated way.
Suha, let me turn to you, because you're right in the middle of all these trends, obviously. Your company, Ele.me, is a kind of clever play on the Chinese phrase for
food delivery?
Yeah, food delivery. Are you hungry, right? So you're in food delivery. You're a fascinating case study of what's going on right now, because you're, this year, you had $1 billion from Alibaba in funding, is that correct?
Yeah.
So that was the second biggest financial fundraising event in China, as I understand it, after Didi, which is huge, and makes you now, the last ranking that I saw said that you were about a $6 billion company, so you're a unicorn and then some. Maybe the 13th.
No, over 60 million in a year.
Is that right? Oh, bigger than that.
Yeah.
So I saw that you were something like 13 on one ranking of global unicorns. So that makes you a very big player. Now, food delivery is an interesting one, because in the United States, a lot of other markets, people haven't figured out how to make that profitable. Are you profitable, and what are your expectations?
Right now, I think in some cities in China, we get the profitability. It's profitable, and I think the pricing strategy is very clear in food delivery, because we can charge the money from the restaurant side, and we can also charge the delivery fee from the user side. So the model is very clear. And also, I think in the marketplace, and especially in China, the Alibaba can get a lot of money from the merchants. So I think it still have a lot of potential in the restaurant side. We can get money because we give them a lot of the online users.
Yeah.
And because also we expand the business area because we give the logistic ability and to make them to reach more and more users over the 3 mile or 4 miles. Because if you only are restaurants and without the delivery ability, you don't have the ability to reach a lot of users over the 3 miles. So I think we give them a lot of users. And also we give them delivery ability and to help them to deliver their food to the users.
Yeah. And
I think in China, there are a trend that, and more people want get lazy.
Yeah.
They don't want to get out because the traffic jam, and you also should pay the parking fee if you want to eat outside. So I think it's a very easy way to help the people to get food.
Yeah.
Food. That's a trend.